Welcome back. Good morning, and thank you for staying with Morning Express. We'll definitely continue taking a look at the latest developments, not just in the dailies, but what transpired yesterday and throughout the weekend as well, leading up to today's discussion centered on politics. I'm still joined by Agri Chabeda, who's a governance expert, and James Gakuya, who's the Embakasi North Member of Parliament. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Before I engage you, I'd like to begin with a story touching on the narrative of dynasties versus hustlers, which will inform the basis of our conversation today. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has once again rubbished the hustler versus dynasty political narrative being championed by his deputy, William Ruto, a move he calls divisive and a major threat to the country's security. He said if left unchecked, the dynasty-hustler debate could degenerate into a class warfare. He warned that the government will not hesitate to take decisive action against those provoking national strife. Now, Duncan Haimba with that report on this issue that has made headlines over the past few months.
President Uhuru Kenyatta has for the second time in less than a month punched holes into Deputy President William Ruto's latest brand of politics of hustlers versus dynasties as he steps up his 2022 presidential campaigns.
The hustler nation is saying this country belongs to all of us and we must all sit at the table where we are going to have a honest national conversation.
On Monday morning, the head of state was live on Kikuyu vernacular radio stations addressing his Mount Kenya home ground and told off his deputy, whom he accused of sowing seeds of discord with his hustler narrative, citing last week's incident when angry border operators reportedly set a vehicle ablaze following an accident with one of them.
Narajinirwo niki tondu handu nakigia accident na gutikire mundu taikoragwo na accident no gucina ngari ati tondu ati ni atuika ni dynasty muthuri uthiete kuruta thithino yake nigetha hote kwigurira gakari gake ri kana rori yake ri ya ukuaga waru agitwaraga thoko ri vata wa kuhurithania andu niki.
As he gave a stern warning against those who will attempt to cause national strife.
Koguo kurumana ti kindu no geria kurugamia wira kana geria kurehe gacagaca kana geria kurehe bara oria ndamwirire ndika kamega niguo mukamenya niguo cimba njurire ti nyau no agĩkorwo nĩ irumire icio angĩkorwo na icio ũraigua ciragũkenia rĩ.
Mimi nataka niwaambie hawa jamaa, you are not going to sell us fear. We are not going to buy your threats and your blackmail and your intimidation. This country belongs to all of us.
President Kenyatta says it is reckless to radicalize the unemployed youth by pitting them against other Kenyans.
Akuhurithania andu niki ahanaki aitu ri twina bata wa tunyitanire nao oguo ngumwiraga BBI ni gucaria njira iria tukumateithia mahote kwirugamirira no gucaria njira cia kumateithia kwirugamirira ri ti kuga turumage aciari yao kana turumage aria akuru wao no njira ni te icio ngumwiraga turacaria thiini wa BBI menda gukomba mbeca tumateithie gukomba maheo githomo gia gwika biashara.
On Sunday, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka also accused Ruto of engaging in dangerous politics.
Extremism in politics inaweza kuwa mbaya zaidi kuliko tunavyodhania. If you start a class war.
For several months, Deputy President William Ruto has been leading political rallies with calls with what he terms a paradigm shift in Kenyan politics. Duncan Haimba, KTN News.
Well, thank you for that, Duncan Haimba. It will form the basis of our conversation, and I'd like to begin from that particular point. Allow me to engage Agri Chabeda first, who's a governance expert. Your quick reaction to the sentiments that were uttered by President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday?
On the one hand, I think the president is right that there's a very big danger of us falling into a class war. Yeah. But on the other hand, that him and the deputy president were elected on the same ticket. They are the two people we are looking at to lead this country. They're in charge of the security, they're in charge of how the country is running, and I think it playing out in public, the divisions between them, where there appears almost to be like there is nobody in full control of the situation. I think it's frightening. We know where we've come from in various stages of our democratic growth, with the latest one being the very dangerous situation we found ourselves in 2007/2008 January. Yeah. And I think it behoves upon them, I think, to come together and just tone down the tension and allow some debate to take place that can let us go into the election in a peaceful and democratic way. The way it's going right now, the signs are it will not.
All right. James Gakuya, what do you have to say in reaction to the president's utterances?
What I can say is that the president was trying to pull back the already slided Mount Kenya region royalty support. It's very true that the president comes from Mount Kenya region, and he enjoyed the support of Mount Kenya region twice, and it thrice because at least there was one time that his election was thrown out, and he was re-elected on the third time. During his second term, it has shown a lot of mountains in terms of disconnect with the Mount Kenya region. And in terms of political mightiness, it's like the region has shifted, and it's like it is preparing its position to the exit of the president. And they are already started planning for how to prepare themselves to the incoming government after the president, and which is, to me, is very healthy. Yeah. Because any journey that you prepare for tomorrow, it is very important for you to start preparing that journey today. And therefore, I can say if there is a small disconnect between the president and Mount Kenya, it is not a development disconnect. This is only a political disconnect. And here, the thing started falling when he introduced his new friend, who is the former Prime Minister, Raila Amolo Odinga. And if you can say, the statement is very clear from the Mount Kenya. It is not they are against the president at all. What they are saying, the statement is very clear that they are not fully settled with the proposed marriage between the head of state and the ODM leader come 2022. This is the only signal which is taking a different angle. But in terms of development is moving up on the whole nation, and I don't think the Mount Kenya region has an issue with that. And only where the president, and that's why he talks very clear here, that he is very open yesterday, that he had no any single arrangement in terms of succession come 2022. And this probably will give the Mount Kenya region maybe a break, and probably things may a bit settle. But there is no way the head of state can stand to say that one is preaching violence, because I don't see anything long to do with what we call talking about a forgotten society. This forgotten society is what is calling itself pastoral nation, which is already there. Therefore, we are not talking of something which is not there. Because you are there, you must recognize there is a Mokokoteni, those pullers of carts. There is those who look their daily bread through what we call motorcycle riding. There are those who get their job through toting. And there are those Juakari people. These people, sometimes we forget they exist. And this is the nation where the national Hazara nation is addressing. Otherwise, it is not addressing of anything to do with any fight between the dynasty and the hustle. It is not there. Narrative is not there. But the propaganda want to create that narrative. But it's not out of the mouth of the deputy president. A fight between hustlers and dynasty. It's not there. He's just appealing to the people, and he's looking his strategy how to connect and reach to the people. And the only way to do as a politician is to find an angle, your entry point. How do you catch up?
Okay, now we understand this is politics, definitely, and that's the fact of the matter. There are hustlers, people pushing carts, trolleys as well. But when it gets to a point where, just as the president mentioned, that a lorry is burned with cargo inside, with goods inside, with the purported narrative that this is dynasty. Yes, the DP and the DP camp might not have mentioned that this is an all-out war, us against them, but it seems the perception on the ground, due to the, I don't know what the socio-economic status, it seems to be dividing into class wars. You don't harbor these fears, Mheshimiwa?
I think what we should do as a nation together, without pointing fingers to anybody, is to appeal and address to our people. Somebody, let us tell them that it is not anywhere fight between the haves and have-not. Because even within our midst, we have the haves and have-not. And you cannot just break into his house because he has something so that you grab. So let us not bring in this particular narrative. And we, as a nation, let us sober and forget that actually the God himself has his way of bringing you a lifetime. And then probably those who have not today, tomorrow they will have. And therefore the narrative to say whoever have something must have a dynasty, this cannot work. And I would say those who have, sure, even if you look at their background, most of them are not dynasty. They are nowhere in those major bunch of years. Probably one has been lucky that actually after 1 year after school, he has just maneuvered a side hustle, and that hustle has grown up. Therefore, let us as a Kenya sober and totally come with what we call a demarcation between politics of hate, politics of development. Let us go to the politics of development and totally close down those politics of hate.
All right. Now, speaking of politics of development, Agri, I'd like to bring you in right here. It's not just Mount Kenya, but I'll highlight this due to the letter by the Senate Majority Whip. I mean, they seemed to be of the idea that BBI, at least a majority according to that particular letter, is centered, the people in the central are centered on, development in terms of coffee, in terms of the regional development, not really about the political progress in the Mount. But this is something that Ruto has just seen and used as an entry point. He's doing politics differently, mobilizing his political base along dominant socio-economic pockets, not the usual, what we see, ethnic regional conundrum. What do you make of the wheelbarrow-nomics?
I think in terms of optics, he has picked on a theme, and he's pushing that narrative, and it's in my opinion working for him. The only negative I see is where it's beginning to degenerate into what we have just discussed earlier, where you again are seeing acts of wanton lawlessness, and there appears to be, again, no action taken. And I might say also taking action in itself can become a political problem, simply because when you look on the other side of the coin, there is the corruption, which again I'll use the same word, wanton corruption, that is taking place. We've got very many cases in court, but they don't appear to get completed. We don't appear to get convictions. All we get is a longer and longer case list of people who are accused of having done one thing or another. So I think there must be some movement by the government. And when I say the government, I'm not sure I understand what to say, because both the president and the vice president, deputy president, are in the same government.
True.
They need to deal with these things, and they need to be seen to deal with these things. They need to have, I think, a conversation needs to be had with the criminal justice system, both the prosecution and the courts, to speed up some of these cases, so that we can at least see that there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Whether people are convicted or whether they are acquitted, it must happen. Otherwise, at this stage now, if there appears to be a focus on what we are seeing at the, what I might call at the Mwananchi level, it will again completely just fall into the narrative that the deputy president has been pushing about the class war.
Okay. Now, you brought in a very critical point, the angle of corruption right here. Even before we continue with the dynasty and hustlers, the president himself attributing to the fact that, let me just use his words, ask those who are mentioning the cost of BBI, where they're getting the figures from. We're waiting for the signatures to be verified before we go to the counties. Don't mislead people by telling them 2 billion will be spent in the process. Even if that is the correct figure, the impact of expenditure will be felt across board. But he also mentioned Kenyans should not be blinded by the BBI, and I don't know it will cost 2 billion or 14 billion. How much has been looted by some of those complaining loudest, which we are now trying to recover from them now? The fight against corruption, I mean, with the president mentioning this, attributing to the fact that, yes, my government is corrupt-ridden. What do you make of this, Agri? Is this a taint in the Jubilee administration?
There is no doubt that corruption has not just tainted the government, it's tainted the whole country. Internationally, I think we moved into a space whereby now we are competing with countries that once upon a time we used to laugh at. The fact that we see the cases of corruption being exposed almost on a daily basis, the fact that people who have very serious charges against them remain in office and continue to execute their duties, yet those below them who are employed people, as soon as there is any suspicion against them, they are interdicted and they go home until matters are sorted out. So there is a seemingly two rules, one for the elected representatives and one for the employed masses. But again, it just goes back to what I was saying earlier. We need the leaders we have to come together and actually appear to be trying to solve this problem of corruption. We know that it cannot be switched on and off overnight, but there must be the train must be seen to be leaving the station. We must begin to see some convictions, some end to cases, rather than the endless circus we see from one court to another, even at the investigative level. We see a lot of names mentioned, people's, the police telling us how they have collected evidence and they are so sure that ABCD is going to happen, then it doesn't happen. Over time, what has happened now is skepticism by the public. We don't actually expect anything to happen, and nothing happens. All right,
so when the president mentions that he wants to focus on the development agenda first before he gets into succession politics, Mheshimiwa, what do you think the electorate, not just in the mountain, but across the region, across the nation, will feel at the end of the day, bearing in mind that corruption is a sore issue in this government? Will the Jubilee government be judged fairly? And by this, I mean everyone on board, including the deputy president.
I believe that the fight against corruption is a fight that must engage to must be engaged by every single Kenyan. If we can leave this fight, the only thing that the president can give this country is goodwill to fight corruption. Because himself as an individual, he cannot wake up to fight it. But actually, this country, the Constitution has created a number of commissions to undertake this particular assignment. And what we are not seeing is maybe quick products out of this. Because here we have the anti-corruption, we have the DCI, and we have the DPP. Also, we have the other team, which is asset recovery, which is also part of the team. And together, that particular mode team is surely supposed to be giving a result. We have seen some time they are working very in tandem, but there was time that also we realized that there is also a disconnect between the DCI and the DPP at some time, even when there was a matter placed in a court through the DCI, where it should be the other way around. Any matter to get itself into the court must come through a criminal, must go through the DPP. Then we witnessed that there are some elements of some teething issues there. Right. I am sure that those are rectified, but still the country is not getting that expectation. Issue to do with our judiciary. We may blame the judiciary too much. The judiciary has, the former Chief Justice has been in the focus that, always saying that actually he has in deficit of number of magistrates, number of judges. And there was a process of having a number of them to be deployed or to be topped up to the system, about 41 number or so, where the president took a different angle. And actually, he didn't, even to date, recommended the appointment of those judges. Then, when we ask ourselves maybe what is putting us behind in terms of decision making, probably that backlog is being delayed by lack of good number enough to clear with the backlogs and the current cases. So that's why we need the judiciary, the executive, to be at least in what we can say in a consultation, find a way, the best way to deal with this, because we may tell them, do this with a certain time. But a judge has a backlog of maybe 100 files, and you want him to prosecute the 100 files within 1 month. It is not possible, depending on maybe the witnesses list and the accused list. This is what takes the delay. And therefore, to me, I may say the will is there. But still, we have a mile to go. Considering that we have billionaires that actually we made last year, who are known as the COVID billionaires, and we have seen nothing going on. It's like that case is a forgotten matter. So let us not politicize some issues, but when issues have come from a different angle, we kill them.
All right. Now, Chabeda, I'd like your quick reply to this. The MP has brought up very critical issues. The goodwill, the political goodwill in the country. Do you think it is conducive for the fight against corruption, number one? And at the end of the Jubilee's term in 2022, what questions will Kenyans be raising to this government in terms of the fight against corruption? Briefly, sir.
Yeah, I think goodwill is very key. And I think while the courts cannot be directed what to do, I think a cordial relationship between the president and the judiciary, I think I mentioned this last week, a discussion so that some direction can be infused in the judiciary and in the not the DCI, more the prosecution service, so that we get away from what might be seen to be just efforts by various parties to delay cases from being heard. And these delays come through challenges to certain procedures, sometimes lawyers being unavailable, and then the judges granting them leave to postpone cases. And we see this playing itself out very often. And if they can just be a bit tougher, then the litigants realize that the courts are not going to entertain what they see as attempts to drag cases along in the courts.
Right.
And once there is goodwill on everybody's side, and we will understand that it's not possible to push cases artificially, but that they can still be concluded within reasonable time.
Okay. Many thanks. Agri Chabeda right there giving us his input, governance expert. We're still joined by James Gakuya, who's the Embakasi North Member of Parliament. Gentlemen, allow me to take a short break right now. When we come back, we'll blow up on this hustler nation narrative and why many leaders, including President Uhuru Kenyatta, say it's a recipe for chaos and anarchy in the country. But I'm sure some might differ. Stay with us. Good morning.